standing from has got the will to break down. Spin the fire in his arm. Don't want the beat to see him. Don't stand beside. There's nothing you can give them but the power in your eyes. You wanna take the power. You will catch the hour while you dance to the fireworks. Children's name. Don't wanna be delivered. Don't wanna be in fear of them. At least you always need them. Your tears not the same. You wanna be a leader who was then no straight. Start there's a wither. His soul is afraid. Come on, he's at the grave beside her.
Well, I've always been inspired by the idea of positive thinking and stoked energy anyway, and I've been a surfer and a skateboarder and a freestyler for a long time in my life, and I ran into some pretty hard times in terms of an accidental fall and some very stressful energies in terms of just changes in life, and that's really what inspired the project. Maintaining the power of positive thinking and creating stoked energy. Well, I had a broken neck. I'd broken my neck in 3 places. It fell at a party in Swampscott, Massachusetts. We were celebrating the addition on a friend of ours' house, and we were on some scaffolding on the back side of the addition of the home. And at the time, fully stable, but under some problematic circumstances, we fell. And when we fell, I sustained some pretty hard hits in that the boards on the scaffolding, which were pretty large, they were 16 by 20, all hit me on the right side of the neck. So it shattered it in 3 places. Basically broke off pieces of the C1, the C2, and the bottoms had gone into the spinal cord. So that's why I started to lose synaptically my hands, my arms, my legs. But I also went through an unexpected set of injuries, I think partially based on trying to be tough and denial through the thing. But once we had gone in to get cleared for the neck surgery, I had been made aware based on an EKG that was abnormal that I had sustained 3 heart attacks in my coronary artery, which is your biggest artery that runs through the center of your heart, and that I would not be going in for neck surgery, and that I would be having what they call a cabbage, coronary artery bypass graft, that following morning at 6 o'clock in the morning. So this kind of hit my family by surprise, and we were more than a little bit in shock. But I also had some kind of weird sense of relief that at least we were going to get to the bottom of what was wrong with me. So yeah, those are basically the injuries that I sustained. A shattered neck and heart wasn't functioning properly. Yeah. Yeah, so there you go, The neck was not particularly a surprise. My neck had been broken like that for 7 years, so. But the cabbage, the open heart surgery was definitely something we didn't count on. So what it entailed was that I had to heal from the open heart surgery, which generally takes 16 to 24 months. At least that's what they told me in terms of the sternum healing the wire that they tie you back up with. So it looked like there was no hope for me to actually get in to get my neck surgery done for at least 1.5 to 2 years. And I just wasn't having that. I just couldn't deal with that. I'd been waiting for so long and I was in so much pain. So somehow I convinced my cardiac surgeon that I would train and I would try to get healthy enough to pull this off in a shorter period of time, and somehow managed to do it in 8 months. So went in still fresh from the heart surgery and underwent a full reconstructive surgery that was pretty much experimental. I guess at the time what I was told was that I was one of 14 people in the world who had this type of reconstruction. What it entailed was them taking out 2 pieces of material out of my spinal cord between the discs that I had broken. 2 of the discs had actually fragmented and splintered off, and those pieces were now embedded in the middle of my spinal cord, which was why I was losing all my synaptic response, and I was losing my hands, my arms, and my legs, and literally just getting shut down. So the first big part of it was the removal, which was pretty high risk. Pretty much was told, this could result in paralysis. But if that went well, then they would do the full lumpectomy reconstruction, which entailed him taking out all of my fins. So the way you guys have your natural fins under spine, mine have all been removed. And what he did was he sent 2 rods up inside, 2 plates in my skull, 2 in my clavicle, and the flexi rods which connect you. And the T2 at the very base was completely removed. So it's a titanium allied hinge that he had to connect the rods to, and then 2 housings on both sides, and he recreated all the way down 12 brackets. So it's 12 bolts and 12 nuts all the way down. And so it's a lot of metal to deal with. Still putting a lot of pressure on my body, but still fighting and just trying to keep Stoked energy alive, just trying to heal tissue and keep a positive attitude, have positive thinking to get through it. It's an acceptance journey when something this heavy happens. And so I was pretty banged up at the time. You can imagine plasty and big bandage and a wire, and now the neck brace and sitting at home and just basically not able to do a thing. So basically what I did was I started watching videos of people either on cable or primarily on the internet, like YouTube videos of people who really have been inspiring me in terms of in terms of life's challenges or obstacles. Some of them were injury based, some of them were life loss based. It didn't really matter whom it was about what had happened, but the very pinnacle part of it was an inspirational piece that I watched on one of my musical heroes talking, Dave Grohl from Foo Fighters and Nirvana. And it was just one day where the pain was super peak high and I was feeling really, really low. And I watched Dave's speech on talking about how he was going through the process of dealing with Kurt's death. I guess, it was sometime later after Kurt Cobain had died, and Dave was talking about how that dull ache, that pain every day, that doubt, that indecision, that numbness was hitting for so long, and that, as the process started to roll for him, he just realized, how sick and tired he was of feeling that energy in terms of being down, that he really wanted to make a comeback, and that he wanted to be able to do positive things again. He wanted to play music again. He wanted to feel good again. He wanted to have a reason to, actually laugh or have, a sense of purpose in his life. And it just hit me like a positive tidal wave. And it really, really sent me on a path of feeling a little bit more stable, even though it couldn't take the pain away. It definitely was healing to me. And it started from Dave, and then it went into other folks. I've always been a huge fan of some pretty iconic surfers and some people that I really admire, and people have been through some really hard stuff. I was watching in the same month, somehow coincidentally, was watching the XXL Awards and for Surfer Magazine, and I was watching the Irons family on stage when they were receiving AI's award, Andy Irons. And for those of you out there in the surfer community, we know that almost 6 years ago now we lost Andy Irons, and here again, I was on a challenge day. I was really, really wondering how I was even going to get a shot at walking normally, and all of a sudden, there's Bruce Irons and, Bruce and Andy's mom on stage, and they were talking about Andy's energy and how stoked he was to be alive, let alone be in the sport of surfing, and just how he approached his life, and the fact that his energy was so positively pure and so stoked most of the time that that his energy was literally on the stage that night, and that he'll always forever be in all of our memory. He'll always be here. And it was just incredibly inspirational to me. That was a huge component. Also a big fan of Tom Carroll, three-time Pipeline Masters champion and world champion surfer from Australia, who's very, very iconic and very well loved in the surfer community. And Tom's been through, hell and back as well, and sustained multiple injuries. This guy is the Evel Knievel of surfing, basically, and has come back from, life-threatening injury, but also struggled with addiction and, forms of depression and things like that. He just wrote his book, and I hadn't read the book yet, but Tom Carroll was a huge inspiration on that level as well, talking about his comebacks, and that led to Ian Walsh. I happen to love Ian. I've always been a huge fan of Ian Walsh and his big wave surfing jaws, and I remember when he really blew out his knee in that big crash, how scary it was for him. And it just led on and on and on that way. It really, I actually revisited part of my childhood. One of my huge heroes in skateboarding and vertical ramp skateboarding was Tony Alva. Was just always inspired by Tony in general, and happened to catch a few of his vids. He's gone through an amazing transformation in his life in terms of moving towards sobriety and positive thinking, and leading a life that is more peaceful based and equanimity based and joy based, and all of these people started to contribute as a huge component. Rob Machado was highly inspirational to me, not necessarily on a loss level. Rob's energy really was more about having that feeling that I still wanted to do good things in the world and find a way to pay back if I could get through this. Just inspired me on a global level, on a higher conscience in terms of helping the planet, helping the people be sustainable in terms of cleanups and cleaner water and stuff that he was doing with the green team. So that was highly inspirational as well. So yeah, it came from many different sources, but basically what I did was I just watched as many of these videos as I could a day until finally that energy started to cook, and I started to really maintain a center that something good would be coming based on enjoying this information and trying to let it cool my mind while I'm in 7, 8s, and 9s in terms of pain. So yeah, that's how it started. Well, when I finally got well enough to actually start moving around a little, I have to admit I cheated a bit in terms of really wanting to just get that neck brace off and just be a normal person. And of course, I was in a lot of denial about what's happened, based on the fact that it's such a large injury and such a amazing healing process in terms of the hardware. But how did it lead to the process of me interviewing everybody? A lot of fate, some really stoked energy and love on some other people's part. I happened to have this idea in my head that I wanted to connect somehow, and I wanted to do something stoked. I wanted to be in a positive realm somehow. get some good feelings going again. And I thought maybe using my camera would be a way, but I didn't know how. And then out of the blue, one of my very dear friends, David Cropper, who owns Cinnamon Rainbow Surf Company in Northampton, New Hampshire, he and I see each other periodically, and they were all very, very loving to me, and they were really shocked based on what had happened in the surgery. And during the time, I had relayed to him that I wanted to start a project like Live It Stoked, and he loved the concept, and so we would talk periodically about it. And it just so happens that he is very close friends with the legendary Robert August from Endless Summer, and that Robert was going to be making a stop at the Wall in Northampton and coming by the shop and doing a signing. And Dave really felt like maybe this might be a healing factor for me, and that Robert and I might be able to connect and share some information for Stoked, and that maybe that would jumpstart the thing. So yeah, I mean, I can't have enough thanks, love, admiration, and just praise, and just, I'm grateful to Dave for enabling me to do this, because it did eventually, in the same location, lead to me making friends with and interviewing Ian Walsh, Bruce Irons, and yeah, so I mean, that's kind of how the thing started to roll. Some other ones were coincidental. We got a raw piece of footage and a short interview from Tony Alva. It just so happened that my wife and I were up north in New Hampshire, based on going up to the Wall, and in Salem Park, we went into a van store, and I was looking to get a pair of Vans to make myself feel good, and she happened to see a card on the counter there as we were leaving, and it was about the fact that they were going to be having an in-store signing, and that John Cardill, who is an iconic skateboarder and freestyler, and Tony Alva were going to be showing up, and it was just totally, completely karmic coincidence. We looked, she handed it to me, and she said, you know what, you should come up here and you should just ask. And I was a little uncertain at first, but something hit, that Stoked energy, it hit, and I felt like, well, there's nothing to lose. The worst they could tell me is no, but lo and behold, when we went, Chase from Vans was just stellar, man. He was completely stoked. He loved the concept, and he went up and talked to Tony, and yeah, so I mean, it led to me talking to, a true lord of Dogtown, Tony Alva, and Tony's a friend and an LAS advocate as well, so yeah, that's really how the whole process started, Friends of mine from the music community, I've been a professional musician on and off for 20 years, and very, very close friends of mine that went through some of the problems and my progress. Will Daly, who's an amazing musician, he's contributed to the project. Michael Bernier from Free Volt and Evolvement Radio has contributed. Michael's mi hermano, he's a brother of mine, and shares in my notions of, the value of positive thinking and living your life to be happy, just for the primary purpose of being happy. So yeah, that's pretty much how the whole thing got rolling. Focus, or the mantra of it, or the discovery part of it for me, was how to utilize positive thinking and stoked energy to overcome an obstacle or a challenge in your life, and that, focusing on that to establish a consciousness, maybe through these videos and through a site globally, where we could exchange information about whether or not we agree that's an energy source itself. So that was kind of the main question that I wanted to ask all of them. I know that they had all been through things in their lives like we all have been as humans, and everybody has their something, and to put that in their laps, to say, I really truly believe that the reason that we can't solve a lot of the issues in the world that can be solved is based on impatience, and in the inability to want to come to the table to understand each other at all. That if you have a positive vibe and you have positive thinking and you're willing to hear somebody out long enough to understand what they're talking about, that it can become an energy source itself, like the sun, and that if we use it as a resource to communicate on a global level ourselves, that we could achieve a lot more, you know. So that's kind of one question I always lead in with the interviews, and it's been really interesting to get people's answers, their take on it. But yeah, that was basically it, and it from there it stems, you know, into other things. Like I wanted to understand, had they had a hardship in their lives or a challenge where they really did have a defining moment where they realized that the basis of positive thinking, creating a stoked vibe, having some levity, having a sense of humor, being able to package that up every day no matter what you're going through. You know, I wanted to be able to get their personal on that. So yeah, that was the basis of it. I wanted to be able to create an advocacy team that, you know, we were basically saying, okay, we're going to hold hands on this, and we are going to say the same thing based on the fact that we believe the same things in terms of stoked energy. So yeah, that was the primary focus of what I wanted to ask. In total, we're at about a little over 3 years now. I think like 2.5 for my neck. So, yeah, surgery was done on Christmas. It wasn't a very nice Christmas present a couple of years back. So yeah, it's still pretty fresh. You know, I'm still in that zone. I'm still trying to get back on my feet, trying to be normal based on the fact that the right side is fused as well between C1 and C2. You know, I'm never going to be quite the same, but still experiencing some pretty intense pain from time to time, and you know, balance is difficult, but just using that energy every day, just trying to do as much yoga as possible, trying to stay in a healthy diet plan. You know, I do a real green diet and almost a macrobiotic type situation, so that's helping too. So yeah, it's actually felt like an incredibly long period of time, but in reality, pretty short. Well, kind of a lot of really amazing, miraculous things. I mean, we've shot multiple interviews with unbelievable people who have immediately jumped on board to be LIS advocates. We've done a new website, which I can't be more proud about. It continues to grow every day, and that's serving to be a piece of global awareness about stoked energy and getting a collaborative of information to, you know, out to the masses on the planet in terms of, you know, how to be stoked and how to have a positive mindset. Shot interviews with Robert August, as I said before, Ian Walsh, Bruce Irons, people in the surfing community, Tom Carroll, Tony Alva, who's also in the skate community. We've got the skate community involved now. We were just out here in Central Mass this summer. We were shooting Mike Rosen's event, and lots of people got involved there, and we're looking forward to that. People in the music community, you know, I've got roots and ties to the music community, and I'm a musician myself, so we had some inbound communication and some good synergy there. The arts community is really starting to grow. Jay Alders, who's an amazing artist, Al Scholl, who's another amazing live music painter out on the West Coast in San Diego. You know, the artist community is really, really growing. It looks like we may be working with Al next summer on a project that he's got going called Artifornia. So we may be shooting a Live It Stoked small doc and episode for the show with Al. He's planning on touring from San Diego County all the way up into Seattle, where he does this phenomenal thing by bolstering art awareness, art creation through working with children and young adults, and works with schools who are underfunded. So he also works with a multitude of some of the most amazing roots reggae bands in the country. So it's a dual show. Al teaches and paints, and then he paints live on stage, and they get a show every night. So there's been talk of a tour potentially going up with bands like Steel Pulse and Dirty Heads, and the list is endless. So we're really excited about that. Most likely we'll be on tour with Al. Also have really reached into the community in Costa Rica, in Jaco, Costa Rica, which is the Central Pacific region, and I just went recently this past summer and had a miraculous experience and was absolutely loved by the entire community there. some of the most iconic watermen and surfers from the area. So we're starting to get some good communication going there, and we hope to have some new interviews happening. We've already shot with Alejandro Monge, who is a famous iconic surfer from Pico Surf Shop. This coming summer, hopefully we'll get an interview with Pico, so you'll be able to hear him talk as well. Gilbert Brown, who is a 4-time Costa Rican surfing champion. Freddie Salsi Boy Camacho, who is an amazing pro surfer and instructor down there. Mauricio Umania, who's also a very, very close friend of mine. He's a pro surfer and a surf instructor. And the list goes on and on. The community down there is just blessed. I can't thank them enough for the love and the outreach, so stoked about that. What else? We're really excited because we're going to be starting a channel on Roku and on internet cable for Live It Stoked, and what we're hoping is that we can design a show that has an episodal content. You'd have an episode every, in a row of a series, and we're going to go around the planet. We're going to be shooting people and on video, and we're going to talk to them about their overcome stories, what makes their process of positive thinking unique, and how they have a stoked energy through the course of their lives, mixing art, music, surf, health, and a healthy eating culture, and all of that. So that's really exciting as well. So yeah, there's a lot happening. I'm sure there's more, but I think I've tapped it right there. But yeah, it's exciting stuff. Where do I see it going? Where's it going? Well, as long as I'm alive, it's going to be my purpose and my mission to pursue this information and the subject matter in this project. We want to continue to spread global consciousness in terms of positive thinking. Right now the world can be an incredibly daunting negative place, and we've got a lot that we can do just on the outreach of compassion, just based on sharing our stories, by being aware of what people have done to transform or heal themselves through hard times. So I'm really, really hoping that moving forward, our community expands and expands and expands. I mean, it's already reached into 4, 5, 6, 7 different types of diverse cultures. People are already exchanging this type of communication, this dialogue, and feeling good about it, and living their lives to be happy and share this communication to, empower each other. So I think that's really the purpose of the project. And, moving forward, I think it's only going to grow. It's going to grow exponentially. And at that point, we've got a collective audience to actually talk about things that affect us all, that we're all aware of, and ways where we could actually serve each other beneficial, healthy, loving, compassionate information about how to lead stoked lives, And in terms of the future with it as, a program, I'm really hoping that eventually it does get some traction and that we can bring it to a bigger audience. If that starts to lead to network kind of stuff, then great. If not, the beauty is, we're going to take that responsibility ourselves. The backbone of our little network is very grassroots. I will always drive this site. The team in terms of production's getting bigger, and there are going to be people coming on board to help. We're also looking to potentially shoot some feature films and some documentaries along the way, so I really have a lot on my plate in terms of where this thing can go and what it can do to grow. But the basis of it is for everybody to check it out in terms of positivity, and I think it's going to be a positive, very stoked thing moving forward. I think that power in numbers in terms of positive thinking. So I said a little bumblebee visiting me. That's what I was looking at. It's okay. Just that you can heal and you can transform and you can overcome some pretty big obstacles that life can throw at you. I'm amazed even myself in terms of just watching the world do it. And when I went through these injuries and went through these surgeries, it was a pretty dark time. I mean, they were not sure that I was going to be able to sustain both and make it. And that can lead you to a pretty dark place if you're feeling like you're running into a teeny cul-de-sac right off the bat. It's can get to be a little daunting. So but with that power, that focus, I guess, you can create a power inside of your inner be, your inner chi, to keep moving forward in a positive direction. And I think, establishing a basis of gratitude, understanding that even when life gets really dark, my friend Tom Carroll, he said to me right on camera, he said, anytime he's ever really gone to the dark, in terms of a near-death experience, and he's had many, or anything that was really, really hard, that the way was to go as deep into the core of the issue as you possibly could, to confront it and hit it head on. And in there, to constantly promote that idea that something good is coming, and it's something that I promote in these interviews frequently, and I intend to do it into the future and as long as I last, in terms of Live It Stoked. You can heal, you can transform, and you can overcome really hard challenges in your life if you're determined to do so. You have a sense of compassion, and you're gentle with yourself. If you allow yourself to have levity during the process, and you have the ability to enjoy the process of healing, to let yourself heal. I really do believe that many of us have more than one shot in life, and it really is our destiny to live as happy and as stoked as we possibly can. So yeah, live it stoked.
stand in front. He's got the will of breakdown. Spin the fire in his own. Don't want the beat to see him. Don't stand beside. There's nothing you can give them. Coming from the